and welcome to Current Affairs for Beginners. Let's start our today's session. First, we'll see answers for the yesterday's questions. Red Fort Declaration is a strategic partnership agreement between which of the following countries? It is C, both India and South Africa. The next question is, what is the theme of this year's National Voters' Day? It is no voter to be left behind. B is the answer. And these are all the topics that we are going to cover in our today's video. The first article is examining farm loan waivers. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. From this topic, we are going to see about a term known as non-performing assets. We have seen about this topic so many times, but now we are going to see this again, and there is a purpose to see this now, because this is going to be used in the further videos also. Non-performing asset. For example, Mr. A has borrowed loan from a bank and he failed to repay this loan to the bank within 90 days. He paid neither the capital nor the interest. Then that particular loan will be considered as a non-performing asset because it is considered as risky and less credit-worthy loan. In India, in 2011, out of the total loans that were lent by the banks to its customers, these non-performing assets were 2.6%. Whereas in 2016, the number has risen to 9.1%, which is almost 3 times. So these non-performing assets have risen, which have affected the financial health of the bank. Now let's see our next article. Supreme Court upholds bankruptcy court. This article comes under GS paper 3 under the topic of economy. From this article, now we are going to see about this insolvency and bankruptcy court. First, we should know what is meant by insolvency. Insolvency. Before knowing about insolvency, we should know about types of creditors. Creditors are the ones who will lend us money or different material that we need. One is a financial creditor. The other one is operational creditor. Financial creditor is the person who will lend us money, the monetary things. Whereas operational creditor is the one who will lend us, who will provide us the raw material for manufacturing or any goods which were used for a business. So let us say there is a company called A, and this company has borrowed some money from this financial creditor X, whereas it has also borrowed some material and goods to do business from a creditor known as Y. So here X is the financial creditor and Y is the operational creditor. Both of them are considered as creditors because they both will expect payments in return from A. These financial creditors were considered as secured creditors because, see, here nobody will give money for free of cost. We have to give some security. We have to show some collateral to them. Based on that collateral only, they will lend us money. So for them, they were sure that they will get their money back. In case if they fail to get the money, recover money from A, they will sell the collateral. And the next one is operational creditor. These credits were considered as unsecured because they will provide the goods and services without any collateral. Now, this A is indebted to both X and Y, and it has done its business and it has incurred some losses. Now, it is in a position to repay the amount which it has borrowed from X and provide payments to Y. Then that situation is called as insolvency. Insolvency means inability to repay to your creditors. And this insolvency is considered as bankruptcy if it is legally declared by the court that this person has become insolvent and he cannot repay the debts to his creditors. So we can say that bankruptcy is a legal declaration of insolvency. So to address this problem, government along with RBI has formulated a code known as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code in 2016. This Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code is a consolidated framework. Even prior to this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, there are various laws. There are multiple laws to address this issue of insolvency. We saw only about creditors, but borrowers are also of two types. One is corporate borrowers, whereas the other one is retail borrowers, retail or individual borrowers. One individual has borrowed it, whereas a company has borrowed from its creditors. So now, prior to this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, there were multiple laws to address this insolvency resolution. But those laws were not a combined laws for both corporates and individuals. Corporate insolvency resolution was done under separate laws, whereas for individuals there were some separate laws, such as Companies Act of 1956, Companies Act of 2013 and Sikh Industrial Companies Act of 1985. Whereas in case of these retail borrowers, there were laws like SAARC Act of 2002. SAARC Act means Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Securities Interest Act. And the other one is Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act of 1993. So now in this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, both the corporate borrowers and individuals, that is the retail borrowers, the insolvency resolution process will be dealt under one code only. So there is no need of separate laws to deal this corporate and retail borrowers. And the other problems that were faced prior to this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code were time taken to resolve this insolvency was very high. And even the recovery rates from the borrowers is very less. And among the BRICS nations, that is Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, among these nations, India is the worst performer in insolvency resolution. It takes high time and even the recovery rates were very low comparing to the other BRICS nations. Due to this reason, the non-performing assets, these started climbing up. They have risen. If these non-performing assets rise, it will have a huge impact on the economy. Like if these non-performing assets were very high, then the banks will lend at very high interest rates. So the lending rates will get affected for the less credit-worthy customers especially. And this investment cycle will get affected. If the lending rates were very high, very few people will borrow money from the bank and they will use that money for the investment. This will get affected, which will ultimately affect the economy. So we are saying that with the introduction of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, now we will see about the resolution process. These non-performing assets can be reduced and the time taken to resolve this insolvency process will be reduced and the recovery rates will be very high. And one more thing is Ease of Doing Business report. This is published by World Bank every year based on 10 parameters. The World Bank will rank all the countries in the world based on 10 performance indicators. Out of these 10 performance indicators, one is insolvency resolution. After implementing this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, India's ranking under this particular parameter has improved a lot. In 2016, India has been ranked at 136th position under this parameter, under resolving insolvency. Whereas in the recent 2018's report, our India's ranking has improved to 103rd position under this insolvency resolution. Now let us see some of the features or provisions of this Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. What is the resolution process? Before getting into it, first we'll see some terms. One is insolvency professionals. These insolvency professionals will play a key role in working of this bankruptcy process. These people are regulated by insolvency professional agencies. And the other one is information utilities. These information utilities were nothing but a repository of all the financial transactions of the borrower. So it will eliminate delays and disputes about the facts of this financial transactions of the borrower. And there were some quasi-judicial bodies. One is National Company Law Tribunal and the other one is Debt Recovery Tribunal. In case of corporate borrowers, it will be adjudicated by the National Company Law Tribunal. Whereas in case of retail borrowers or individual borrowers, the insolvency resolution process will be regulated by the Debt Recovery Tribunal. And another one is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. This body will have regulatory over the insolvency professional and professional agencies and the information utilities. So first, what will happen is either the creditor or the debtor, any of them can approach the adjudicating authority. Let us see it in case of corporate borrowers. Here the borrower is the corporate and the creditors have filed a petition saying that we have lent money to X company and this company has become insolvent to National Company Law Tribunal. And this Company Law Tribunal within 14 days it can either accept it or reject it. If it accepts it, it will appoint an insolvency professional who will be made in charge of operations of this particular company and who is responsible for formulating a committee of creditors, and these creditors will be financial creditors only, and he will acquire information about the financial transaction, financial history of the borrower from information utilities, and he will provide that information to this committee of creditors. These creditors will take 180 days time to insolvency resolution. What is meant by insolvency resolution? These committee of creditors, they will decide whether to sell this company which has become insolvent to some other buyer or liquidate this company. That means sell off it under auction, selling the assets of the company and taking their payments back. It will take 180 days time whether to do which of these things. This time period can be extended by 90 days by the insolvency professional. Even after 270 days, if they fail to take a decision, then the insolvency professional by default will take a decision to liquidate this company. And this committee of creditors will come into a decision based on consensus. That means all of them will agree whether to sell it or liquidate it, or they will come to a final decision based on voting. As per the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, if 75% of the committee of creditors vote in favor of selling the company, then they will go for this. If not, they will liquidate the company. And one more thing which we need to remember here is, all this insolvency and resolution process is not applicable to financial institutions like banks. Recently, the President has promulgated an ordinance by amending this code. Some of the features have got amended. One of it is this voting threshold of the Committee of Creditors has got reduced from 75% to 66%. And if the Committee of Creditors, if they want to withdraw their resolution application they have filed whether to NCLT or Debt Recovery Tribunal, they can do so by a process by 90% of the Committee of Creditors voting to withdraw the resolution application. The next article is SAARC nations must have synergy. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations, and the subtopic is various international organizations. Here we are going to see about this SAARC. SAARC, what is SAARC? The South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. It is a regional intergovernmental organization and it is a geopolitical union in South Asia. The member states are Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, Maldives, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. This intergovernmental organization was founded in Dhaka in 1985 with its secretariat in Kathmandu of Nepal. This organization, it will promote development of economic and regional integration and it mainly works for promoting the welfare of people of South Asia and to improve their quality of life. And it works to improve the economic growth, social progress and cultural development in the South Asian region. And this will provide all the individuals with the opportunity to live in dignity and to realize their full potentials. And one of the major objectives of this SAARC are to promote and strengthen collective self-reliance among the countries of South Asia. The next article is Taking to the Skies. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of governance. From this article, now we are going to see about a scheme which is a regional connectivity scheme known as UDAN. UDAN is an innovative scheme to develop the regional aviation market. The main objective of this scheme is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagarik. It is a regional airport development and regional connectivity scheme of the government of India. So here we have seen that the objective of it is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagarik, which means letting the common citizen of the country to fly. How a common citizen can fly? How can he use this air services? When the air travel is made affordable and available, then only a common man can use this. So this scheme is going to focus on these affordability of air services and availability. How could this objective be achieved? By providing financial stimulus like concessions from the central and state governments and the airport operators like tax concessions, exemptions from landing charges, etc. And by providing a viability gap funding. This will be done to the operators who are serving in unserved or underserved airports so that this route will become self-sustainable. The implementing authority of this scheme is Airport Authority of India. In the notes, I have given a detailed notes for this particular scheme, like what are all its features and where, in which areas this scheme is applicable. It is applicable on flights that were covering distances between 200 kilometers and 300 kilometers. Whether there is any limit that was set for hilly, remote areas, islands and all. No, there is no limit lower limit that was set for hilly areas or islands, security sensitive regions. I have mentioned all that in the notes, so please do check it. The next article is India-South Africa Seal Partnership Deal. This article comes under GS paper 2 under the topic of international relations. From this article, we are going to see here about what is this International Solar Alliance, and we are going to see about India-Africa Field Training Exercise, and we'll see what is this Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, and we'll also see about IBSA. First, what is this International Solar Alliance? International Solar Alliance consists of 121 countries. It consists most of these countries that are located between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. These countries are located at the shortest distance from Sun. That is why solar energy is available in larger quantities throughout the year to these countries. This International Solar Alliance has set a target of 1 terawatt of solar energy by 2030. So it is an alliance that is dedicated to promote solar energy among its member countries. This framework agreement has entered into force in 2017 of December, and it became a treaty based on International Intergovernmental Organization. The headquarters of this International Solar Alliance is in Gurugram of India. The main objective of this International Solar Alliance is to include global deployment of over 1000 gigawatts of solar generation capacity and mobilization of investment of over 1000 billion US dollars into solar energy by 2030. And it also aims to provide an action-oriented organization to bring together the countries that are rich in solar energy, who are having rich solar potential, to aggregate global demand. So that if there is high demand for the solar equipment to capture the solar energy, they need this solar equipment. If there is high demand, so that the prices will get reduced through bulk purchase of these solar equipment. And now if we see what is the role of India in the Solar Alliance. See, this International Solar Alliance is the first international organization which has its secretariat in Gurugram, that is in India. And it will increase India's status at the international level. And to achieve this target, India is aiming to produce 100 gigawatts of solar energy, which will be 1/10 of this International Solar Alliance's target by 2022. India will produce 175 gigawatts of electricity from renewable resources. And if this organization succeeds in achieving its goal, it will not only be a source for clean fuel for current generation, but it will also meet the needs of future generations, which is nothing but sustainable development. The next one is India-Africa Field Training Exercise. This is a joint training exercise that is conducted with more than 12 African countries and India, with an aim to synergize humanitarian mine action and joint peace operations. And this field training exercise of 2019 is a positive step towards growing political and military ties with the member nations of African continent, and it will boost the already strong strategic cooperation between the countries. And the next one is Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. It is a voluntary initiative that intends to increase maritime cooperation among the navies of littoral states, that the states that were bordering Indian Ocean region, by providing an open and inclusive forum for discussion of regionally relevant maritime issues. This forum will provide for the transfer of information between the naval professionals, which will lead to a common understanding, and cooperative solutions will be produced by transferring the information among the navies. This symposium has a total of 35 member nations. These nations were grouped into 4 subcategories. If we see them, South Asian littorals and West Asian, East African, Southeast Asian and Australian littorals. I have given which are all the countries that will fall under these 4 subcategories. Do refer the notes for that. And the next one is IBSA. IBSA is a dialogue forum of India, Brazil and South Africa. It is a tripartite group that supports promoting cooperation in various fields between these 3 important poles of South-South cooperation. The main objective of this forum, dialogue forum, is to promote South-South cooperation by making an important access between these 3 countries of the 3 continents, that is India, Africa and South America, and to build an agreement or to build a consensus on issues that were of international importance, that is like United Nations or United Nations Security Council reforms, and to increase trade or exchange of information between these 3 countries and make efforts in reducing the international poverty, that is to strive for international poverty alleviation and social development. Now let's see our today's questions. One is on insolvency and bankruptcy code. The other one is who publishes this ease of doing business report. Try to answer these questions and tomorrow we'll see answers for these questions. Thank you.